You know, this feels like the first day of spring. For the first time since about last September, I can feel the warmth of the sun in these old bones of mine. And a couple of days ago in the Scottish Parliament, our First Minister made a statement that was also full of the warmth of spring. And it's given me a bit of a warm glow inside. We now have the Scottish Government's roadmap to easing COVID restrictions, and that's great news. Now, nothing significant is going to happen imminently, but on the 26th of April, just over a month away, tourist accommodation can open up, and that includes campsites. That is, of course, subject to continued positive COVID data. Even better, travel within all of mainland Scotland will be permitted. And that's subject to some other restrictions that remain in place. For example, I believe there'll be some restrictions in travelling to the Western Isles, Orkney and Shetland for the moment anyway. And that's to allow consultation with folk who live on the islands. Now, the news for all of you folk who live south of the border isn't quite as clear as yet either, I'm afraid. The First Minister has said she hoped restrictions on journeys between Scotland and other parts of the UK can also be lifted, if not on April the 26th, then as soon as possible thereafter. She wants to keep all of this under review, and I quote, as part of our efforts to reduce the risk of new cases being imported into Scotland, then we'll update the position during April. Now, buoyed by this news this morning, I booked our first campsite of the year. In early May, we'll be heading to one of our favourite campsites in Scotland, Sands at Gairloch. Now, coincidentally, that was the last campsite we stayed at last year, so it'll be good to get back there and sit and watch the sunset from the dunes, or simply wander along the beach listening to the sound of the tide. But I think the main reason I'm so excited is at long last I can begin to plan. At last, the chink of light we've been talking about has become more than just a ray of hope. We've been dreaming of trips to France, Spain and Portugal, but I suspect that'll be put back until next year. So for the moment, like most other folk, we'll be taking our trips here in the UK. And one trip that I've had on the drawing board for a while now is a circumnavigation of the Scottish coastline, or as close as we can get to it from the campervan. Now, there's lots of places I want to visit, lots of hills I want to climb, lots of coastal walks to enjoy. And you know what? We're going to start it very soon, probably the middle of May, all going well. I'm getting quite excited. I'll do a few vlogs on the trip, and who knows, there might even be a book comes out of it. And on that trip, given the situation we find ourselves, I'll probably use campsites most of the time. Now, I don't need an oracle to tell me Scotland is going to be extremely busy this summer. And despite all the positive news about airs and low-cost parking places I mentioned in a recent video, I think the most sensitive thing to do is book campsites in advance. And in that way, we won't be bustling around every night looking for somewhere to park up. We'll have the assurance of a booked place in an official campsite. And that would be my advice to anyone hoping to tour in a campervan in Scotland this summer. Sure, there will be some overnight parking places, and if you can use them, then that'll be absolutely great. But don't think Scotland is going to suddenly turn into a France or a Germany with loads of airs and stellplats. That ain't going to happen. It's going to take 2 or 3 years to get a decent number of airs in place, so please be patient. Until then, we have to think about responsible campervanning. I've just bought a litter picker. You can pick one up, if you forgive the pun, for about 12 quid. It's our intention to clear up wayside litter wherever we can. And I want people to believe campervanners are responsible and leave places better than they've found them. Know the outdoor access code and follow it. Leave everywhere tidier and more litter free than you've found it. If you can, spend money locally and support local businesses. And please, please, please don't dump waste other than at a proper disposal point. Finally, keep following the COVID guidelines, wear face masks when necessary, wash your hands, keep socially distanced. The sooner we can squash this virus, the better for all of us. But for now, it's still over a month before we can hit the road, so I'm off out on my mountain bike again. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.